To start, I'll describe the levels of attachment by using a very simple analogy that allowed me to relate it to my life. Soccer, or football as it's known almost everywhere else outside of the United States. You don't actually have to like sports to get this analogy. In fact, you might even discover that not liking sports enhances your understanding of the concept. On the other hand, you might see an accurate reflection of your own level of attachment to a game or team, or recognize these examples in people around you. Remember, you could apply the meaning behind this analogy to any situation you have in your life. Level 1. The authentic self. Imagine that you like soccer, and you could go to a game in any stadium in the world. It could be a magnificent stadium or a dirt field. The player could be great or mediocre, and you're not rooting for or against a side. It doesn't matter who's playing. As soon as you see a game, you sit, watch, and enjoy it for those 90 minutes. You simply enjoy watching the game for what it is. The players could even be kicking around a tin can. You'd still enjoy the ups and downs of the sport. The moment the referee blows the whistle that ends the game, win or lose, you leave the game behind. You walk out of the stadium and continue on with your life. At this level, you can enjoy a moment in time without any real attachment. You invest just enough of yourself to choose to attend the game and watch. This is you in total control of knowledge. You experience the purest form of joy, stemming from your pure desire to experience life without conditions. Level 2. Preference. This time, you attend a game again in any stadium in the world with any team playing, but now you root for one of the teams. You realize that if you invest a little more of yourself by identifying a preference, the emotional roller coaster makes the game more exciting. You decide which team to root for based just about anything, from the color of the uniforms to the names of the players. Perhaps you simply pick the home team. You spend the game rooting for one team, but not necessarily against the other. Still, in the end, you walk out of the stadium and leave it all behind. At this level, you invested a small piece of yourself in the game. You formed an attachment to something, however arbitrary, and based your decision and actions on that attachment. You have engaged in a preference for a team. You created a story of victory or defeat that shaped the experience. But the story had nothing to do with you personally, because the story was about the team. You engaged with the event and the people around you, but at the end of the game, you simply say, "That was fun," and let go of the attachment. This ability to attach and detach easily allows you to invest an emotional side of yourself that will enjoy the ups and downs of a great game. Life is happening, and you are able to share it with those around you, regardless of how they see themselves. Level 3. Identity. This time, you are a committed fan of a particular team. Their colors strike an emotional chord inside you. When the referee blows the whistle, the results of the game affect you on an emotional level. This is your favorite team. You could still go to any stadium or field in the world, but nothing compares to seeing this team play. Your team, winning or losing, partially defines your character beyond the 90 minutes of the game. You feel elated when your team wins. When your team loses, you feel disappointed, but still, your team's performance is not a condition of your own self-acceptance. If your team loses, you're able to accept the defeat as you congratulate the other side. You accept the victories and disappointments as part of the emotional roller coaster that makes life interesting, but your self-worth is not based on these outcomes. If you meet a fan of the opposing team, you will see not a fan of soccer, but also a fellow human being with whom you are willing to share a beer. You could sit together and discuss soccer, and you could talk about how great you think your team is. You might even admit that you think their team is great as well. Your feelings and opinions surrounding your team are not a condition by which you could relate to others or to yourself. At this level, your attachment to your team begins to impact your personal life outside the stadium gates as you relate to the world as a fan. The separation isn't quite as clear as it was at first. At level 3, the culture, the team, has become a part of your identity. When the event or moment passes, it still forms who you think you are. You take the knowledge with you and begin to shape parts of your life around this team, bringing it to other environments that have nothing to do with it. For example, if your team loses, you might have a bad day at work, arguing with somebody about what or who is responsible for the team losing, or feel sad despite the good things going on around you. No matter what the effect is, you've let an attachment change your persona. Your attachment bleeds into a world that has nothing to do with it. Level 4. Internalization. Staying with our sports analogy. At level 4, you associate with your favorite team has now... Staying with the sports analogy, at level 4, your association with your favorite team has now become an intrinsic part of your identity. The story of victory and defeat is now about you. Your team's performance affects your self-worth. When reading the stats, you admonish players for making us look bad. If the opponent's team wins, you get angry they beat you. You feel disconsolate. You feel disconsolated when your team loses, and may even create excuses for the defeat. Of course, you would never sit down with one of the fans in a pub for a friendly chat. You might even find yourself consumed with finding out more information about the players. On the hand, each and every word of praise your team earns feels as though it is directed at you. Not only have you brought the game home, you have completely incorporated it into your persona, shaping your identity by your beliefs of what it means to be a real fan. Although the piece of knowledge in this story has nothing to do with your reality, your self-importance correlates with your attachment. Your life and your attachments are so blurred that everything starts to revolve around this team. Your fellow fans had better behave too, because they all represent these colors. And these colors mean something. They have value in your life. They had better fit what it means to be a real fan. Otherwise, they shouldn't call themselves one. You find yourself debating how much better your team is outside the context of the game. You believe that anyone who doesn't agree with you is wrong. This is the point where the belief has moved from an identity to an internalization. When dealing with the fans of opposing teams, you argue and shout, but it will stop short of fisticuffs. You can still limit your defense to just arguing. While you may have some friends who are not soccer fans, you much prefer the company of those who think like you. As your attachment grows, you might make it your loyalty to this team a condition by which you allow others to be in your relationship with you, including yourself. As your attachment grows, you might make your loyalty to this team a condition by which you allow others to be in your relationship with you, including yourself. In other words, you have internalized your attachment to such an extent that it has become a condition of self-acceptance. Thus, you begin to impose this image onto people you love as well as people you interact with in your everyday life. Level 5, Fanaticism. At this level, you worship your team. Your blood bleeds their colors. If you see an opponent's team's fan, they are automatically your enemy, because this shield must be defended. This is your land. The others must be subjugated so that they too could see your team as the real team. Others are just frauds. What happens on the field says everything about you. Winning championships makes you feel better, and there is always a conspiracy theory that allows you to never accept a loss as legitimate. There is no longer a separation between you and your attachment of any kind. You are committed to your team through and through. A fan 365 days of the year. Your family is going to wear their jersey, and they better be a fan of your team. If any of your kids become a fan of an opposing team, you will disinherit them. Out. At level 5, your family can easily be torn apart and destroyed if any one of you turns your back on the team. Relationships mean nothing to you unless they are a believer in your team. Every action you take, every decision you make is within the rules that you think make a great fan. Of course, you can't see anything from the point of view of someone who does not share the love of your team. If you did, you would be considered a traitor by your own standards. At level 3 and 4, you may still have friends who do not like soccer, but at level 5, you don't waste your time with people who don't love the sport. They do not know better. You choose not to have them in your life. You are willing to fight for what you believe in. Your belief becomes more important than the experience. As your attachment grows, it could reach a culminating point where respect is even lost for humanity. In your eyes, a true fan is willing to die and kill for his team. It doesn't even matter if a referee blows a whistle to start or end the game. It doesn't even matter if they play soccer. The symbol of the colors are more important than your own life or anybody else's life. Whenever we believe something without question, we are at risk for attachment at this most extreme level, and it could exist in the most unlikely places. If you're having difficulty relating to the sports analogy at this level of attachment, let me conclude with 2 real-life examples. At the end of one soccer season in Europe, a big-name club was relegated into a second division, a lesser division. After witnessing that team's final loss, a fan went home and hung himself. For him, life was no longer worth living if his team wasn't in the Premier League. In another instance, a bus driver was a fan of a team that lost the Championship League finale. He was so upset that he drove his bus into a group of people wearing the winning team's jersey. 4 people died for wearing the wrong colors. This man's attachment to his team was so great he killed for it. Fortunately, murder and suicide due to a favorite team's losses are a rare occurrence. But when we turn the topics to such as religion, politics, or our ideas about money, sex, power, and the examples of attachment at this level are numerous. Turn on any news station and it is easy to see. It's important to realize that when we or anyone else becomes attached to a set of beliefs at this level, it's easy not to see the humanity of an individual, since we could only see the personalization of an idea that we stand against. At level 1, you could go to any church, synagogue, temple, mosque, or drum circle, and you will find and feel the love and grace of God. At level 5, God just happens to be the focus of devotion that the religion is centered on. In other words, the religion is more important than God. Imagine spirituality, homeopathic remedies, or veganism. Apply the levels to race or ethnicity or sexual orientation. Apply it to love. The 5 levels of attachment can be applied to any form of information, and suddenly the consequences become far less trivial. While soccer is a good introduction to the 5 levels of attachment because it breaks down the concept into a fairly understandable parts, the purpose is for you to see how the levels play out in your own life. As I explain the levels in detail in ensuing chapters, you'll begin to think about how attached you are to your various beliefs. You'll learn how to access what level you are on every belief that you have, not as a bias for judgment, but to perceive a deeper understanding of self. The goal is to shift your perspective and see the potential that is present beyond your beliefs, and notice how your understanding of love and respect changes as your attachments hold on you diminishes. Lastly, as we move through these next chapters, keep in mind my grandmother's question: is knowledge controlling you, or are you controlling knowledge? I loved it. That is the 5 levels of attachment summarized. My favorite, fanaticism. We're going to get into this. It's going to be so awesome. We're going to highlight where people are fanatics in the world and where we might be fanatics in our life. I'm going to ask some really interesting questions. One of my favorite parts of this chapter was, and one of my favorite things about the Toltec philosophy in general, is this paragraph right here. At level 1, you could go to any church, synagogue, temple, mosque, or drum circle, and you will find and feel the love and grace of God. That is something we're striving for. That is what I'm going to be using when I'm analyzing all these belief systems. I am searching for the love and grace of God in each of them, and just to bear witness to them and see the grace of God in these belief systems. It does something for me. So stick around. There's going to be more of this. I'll try to knock out a couple chapters here this week. Take care.